What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some Sing It With Me. I slashed your mother butthole. Today we have some spicy Reddit stories for you to enjoy. Come get involved, hit that like if you want to, that subscribe maybe, and let's just jump straight in to today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, this first story we read, I think it was about a week or so ago, and it's from Advi Reddit called Am I the Arsehole for Kicking My Sister Out of My Family Gathering After Comment About Adopted Son. Now the OP has updated it, so I'm going to cover the original story first, then go on to the update, so please feel free to use the timestamps if you don't want to hear the story again, and let's get involved. So, some feel I, 32 male, should have handled the situation, but I don't see how I'm wrong. Me and my sister, 37 female, are not as close as we used to be because of some messed up stuff that happened years ago. I had my son Jesse, 9, pretty young. Months after that, to my surprise, my ex was pregnant again. Only I knew it wasn't me because having an infant to take care of and provide for left me with zero interest in sex. And we found out it was my sister's fiance, ex now, that she was seeing behind our backs. It hurt. Worst pain ever, but for my son's sake, I tried to get past it. I come from a family of half-sibs too, so I wanted my son to be close to his half-brother, Keith. Surprised, not only were they, my ex and my sister's ex, horrible lying cheaters, but also terrible parents. Both got hooked on drugs, only escalated from there. He got locked up when Keith was 3. This particular issue with my sister happened a couple of years ago. My ex got sick. She was scared of Keith ending up in foster care like her, and I didn't want that for him either. I legally adopted him before she passed when he was 6. Not everyone in the family was on board at first, but he's the kind of kid that is hard not to love, so they warmed up to him. My sister never did. She hated that I brought the son of her ex-fiancé into my family. And I understood why it was painful, but Keith's and Jesse's best interests were my main priority. That's how we drifted apart. Last weekend was my birthday and I had a small barbecue at my place. My parents have tried hard to mend things between us, so they convinced me to let her come too, so we can chat. I thought that meant she was cool with Keith, because obviously the three of us are a package deal. I asked my parents how would she feel about Keith. They said not to worry about it. Again, I took it as she came around. Only she wasn't told he would also be present. But how could he not be? He lives there. My sister got there and she was mad when she saw him. She very specifically said, I thought this was family only, what's he doing here? Loud enough where he could have easily heard, but thankfully he was playing with his brother. My sister was pissed because my parents told her Keith wouldn't be around, and I got pissed when she told me she didn't want him here, expecting me to do something about it. So I just told her to leave, and she's not welcome here then. There was some back and forth from her and my parents, and I didn't want that kind of talk around my sons, so still made her leave. My mum seems to think I was a huge arsehole for kicking her out of my party instead of trying to work things out. Like they take Keith somewhere out of sight while me and her talk, but to me, what's the point of us working it out if that's how she feels towards my son? Well, this is still causing some conflict since I escalated the feud by making her leave instead of actually talking to her. Am I the arsehole? And I'll just give you the gist of the comments before we go to the update, and it was basically, the child is the innocent party in this. OP has been able to deal with that fact, so sister should probably too, and not blame a child for, their partner being cheated on. It's not their fault. And whilst the comments could understand why sister was hurt, still don't blame the child for it. Oh, and also the parents were the arseholes for, setting this up without saying anything about it. But hey, let's move on to the update to see what that says. So, updates. Okay, I actually wasn't going to add anything, but figured since conflict has somewhat been resolved, why not? The issue was mostly on my parents, and I decided to contact my sister to discuss what to do with them. It was a very tense conversation. Really, really tense. She was still very mad at me. Lots of resentment, obviously. I was angry at her for a reaction at my party, but at least we managed to remain civil and keep the topic solely on our parents to make sure they don't try to pull something like this again. We agreed neither of us will be in each other's lives. Her issues with Keith and me not wanting to exclude him, as he's a big part of my life, and agreed that we both needed to speak to them together to get that point across. When we met up with them, we told them they're gonna have to accept that this is how it's going to be. Do holidays and celebrations like we've done them before. Separate. One of us not attending or showing up after the other has left. And they are not allowed to push us into talking, ambush us the way they did, or that'll result in losing both of us permanently. In the end, they seem to have got it. At least they apologized and that was that. My sister and I went on our separate ways. Does it absolutely suck? Yes, where life's taken us. At least now neither of us have to worry too much if we're going to get tricked into a meeting again. At least I hope not. Oh, one thing I wanted to address. My son, I did see a few comments concerned if Keith heard what she said or not. Maybe he pretended not to. I kinda hoped he just didn't, since I didn't see a reaction, but thanks for pointing that out. In case he did, I didn't want him internalizing that. Unfortunately, yes, he did hear. We had a whole conversation several nights ago alone. He didn't want to admit at first he heard, but you can tell from kids. These heavy stuff never get easy explaining to a kid. Best I could say was that she was just angry, and angry people sometimes say mean things for no reason. But no matter what, he's family. He knows he's my boy and I love him, and his brother does too. I'm glad he knows that. Glad people brought it to my attention. Glad to have gotten Reddit's support and wisdom. I appreciate it so much. Not a perfect ending where everyone got along, but at least now boundaries have been drawn and less chances of this happening again. And again, before we get into anything, I just want to say what an amazing father this is to that boy. And it's a shame the sister isn't seeing eye to eye, but there is some positives to come out of this update, you know. Like Opie said at the very end there, boundaries being drawn, like they all know where they stand now and the parents know where they stand. And I think the best thing, and although not totally a positive, when the child did notice, you know, what was being said about them, that it actually came out, and it's through the comments of the previous post that OP did realise and brought it up with their son and had this conversation. And I think that's incredibly important for their future, and it opens up so many doors to have these conversations, and I think that's just such a great positive. What do you guys think of this update? As I said, not 100% positive, but in the right direction, I think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to the next one. And our next story comes from Lorandy9. Am I the arsehole for refusing to eat from my colleague's vegan birthday cake? I, 29 female, am working in an office. I have a colleague, Bea, who routinely makes fun of vegans. I am vegan and never make a fuss about food. I go to the same restaurants as my co-workers during lunch hour, and I can always find myself something to eat without announcing my dietary choices. Bea keeps calling me out on it though, and she's very condescending about it. She keeps saying I'm just having a phase, and she keeps offering me bites of her lunch that contain cheese and meat. And when I refuse, she just goes, "Oh come on, it's vegan, I promise." Wink wink. It's very childish and annoying, and even other people have asked her to tone it down. But she insists she's just joking. Last week she brought a homemade cake to the office for her birthday, and when she put a slice down in front of me, I politely thanked her, but I said I can't eat that. She said the cake is vegan, and she made it specifically so I could eat it. But knowing her very loose definition of vegan, I asked a few questions about the ingredients, and she didn't check any of them for milk or eggs. So I thanked her again but refused the slice. She made a big scene out of it. She started crying and saying she just wants to do something nice for me, and now I ruined her birthday. Some colleagues told me not to mind her dramatics, but my boss told me that it was her birthday and I could have given her cooking the benefit of the doubt. I sort of see his point, but I also feel like I don't need to justify my food choices to anyone, and I never asked her to make the cake vegan for me. Am I the arsehole? Now this one, and I may be wrong saying this straight away, but this feels like a very, very dramatic colleague that just kick fuss about anything. But you was totally right with your last line there where you said, I don't need to justify my food choices to anyone. And the fact that they keep trying to push this on you is almost like bullying in the workplace kind of behavior. You know, she keeps making a scene about it. And if that was me in that position and someone was doing that to me and trying to make me feel guilty, I would feel incredibly awkward in front of colleagues. So I don't think you're the arsehole at all in this situation to me. But what's her name says, not the arsehole, sounds like she was waiting for you to eat it so she could go, aha, and tell you how much you enjoyed it. I do wonder as well. Luxstrick says, I'm not the arsehole. An adult woman crying because someone ate her birthday cake is sad. Wow. Perhaps News says, not the arsehole. Bea is bullying you. It's inappropriate in a working environment. You should file a complaint with HR and describe all the incidents. And quotes, she made a big scene out of it. She started crying. Then says this is not acceptable. You've done nothing wrong. She's acting if she is a victim. She is not a victim, she is a bully. Then quotes one more time saying, my boss told me that it was her birthday and I could have given her cooking the benefit of the doubt. And then says, report your boss as well. Nobody should be pressured to eat something they don't want. And I feel like after that comment, it's a perfect time to point out yesterday I made a big mistake in a video where I said HR is there to protect you, when whilst they should be there to protect the person's interests as well, as many times we've seen before, they are there to protect the company's interests. And I just wanted to clarify that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't approach HR, but you should always be prepared with evidence and stuff like that. I did put it in a pinned comment on that video, but I think it was an important point to raise after several people did tell me in the comments as well. And I think it's always best to correct things when we can. So thank you so much for people for pointing that out and pointing me in the right direction. Thank you so much. And we'll move on to the next comment. An electric moccasin says, and quotes, I also feel like I don't need to justify my food choices to anyone. Then says, ding ding ding, that's the correct answer, not the arsehole. Bad advice giver says, I'll bet you $50 that cake wasn't actually vegan, not the arsehole. Radiant Cat says not the arsehole. She's clearly and repeatedly shown that she doesn't respect your dietary choices. Her cake was probably as vegan as a bacon cheeseburger. Oh, yummy. You politely refuse. Your boss needs to take several seats as it's completely inappropriate for him to comment on what you eat or don't eat. He needs to talk to Bea about her bullying and harassing you over food. Now, what would you do if you found yourself in a situation like this? A colleague was calling you out in front of everyone for your dietary choices. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below and we'll move on to the next one. And our next story comes from LuckyRoo89. Am I the arsehole for embarrassing my aunt? Names have been changed. I'm child-free, relationship-free, and sex-free. This is important for the story. I have no problems with people who have these things and will fully support people struggling with fertility issues as much as my body autonomy will allow. The only thing I won't do is be a surrogate. Me, 29 female, and my parents were at a family party. My nosy aunt Caroline asked, so when are you going to get married and have kids? It's no secret that I want neither, because I want to be happy on my terms. When I reminded her that I wanted neither, she went off that I wasn't a real woman if I didn't do these things. But I just rolled my eyes, haven't heard it all before. Then came this gem. What about all other women who can't have kids, like your Aunt Jessie? You're so selfish. Aunt Jessie and her husband have tried to get pregnant for years, and after a few failed rounds of IVF, she just decided to have a hysterectomy and not deal with it anymore. Her husband has been so supportive of her throughout the whole thing, and 20 years later, still going strong. I just laughed, pulled out my phone and called Jessie, who lives a few states away, and asked her about what she thought of child-free women. That's their business. Why are you asking? Caroline said to think about you when I say I don't want kids and that I'm selfish and should pity people like you. This earned a gasp from the rest of the party. Caroline going ghost white. Jessie was having none of it. Jesus fucking Christ, Caroline, let the woman be happy. She's the only person to help me after my surgery. You said you have better things to do. Shut the fuck up and let me speak for myself. I thanked Jessie and hung up. Caroline was so humiliated she was crying and she just left the party. The younger people thought it was a much overdue Caroline got put in her place, but the older ones thought I was being petty. So, am I the arsehole for embarrassing my aunt? Now, this one is an absolute not the arsehole, but there was a section in this that had me worried. I was like, oh my word. When she said she laughed and pulled out her phone and called Jessie, who lives a few states away, to ask her what she thought about child-free women, and if it happened just like that and it was going down this road, and it's a very, very sensitive subject, and I thought, oh my god. Without any context, it was a bit worrying, but it sounds like OP has a good relationship after they said they helped Jessie after their surgery, so it sounds like they had a good enough relationship to be making this phone call straight away. But I gotta admit, when I was reading that did worry me a little bit, but absolutely not the arsehole. And it sounded like this person did need to be put in their place with these stupid views, man. I mean, come on now. You can only be a real woman if you get married and have kids. I mean, such an outdated look on life. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, wanting that kind of life. That's up to you. But that's exactly what it should be. Your choice in what you want with your own life. But Natasha Vorster says, well, if it isn't the consequences of her own actions making her cry. Not the arsehole, and quite frankly, well done to you for shooting that shit down. I do have a son whom I love very much. My sister hates kids. It's life, and people should learn to mind their own dang business. And Nemi says, not the arsehole, and how on earth would it help Jesse if you did have kids? For fuck's sake, I'm so glad I'm past menopause and no longer get these questions myself. Nerd Crush says, not the arsehole. It has previously been the case that families just let people be shitty because that is how they are. I think it's bullshit. Mindy Mouse says, not the arsehole, assuming you knew your Aunt Jessie's stance and weren't going to be hurt by involving her. All you did was call someone out on hurtful misinformation. It sounds like this is not new or unusual occurrence based on Jessie's reaction. Your Aunt Caroline needs to learn to think before she speaks, and just to stay silent on a host of topics, including someone else's personal choices. That's exactly what I was thinking, but Lucky Roo replies to that OP who says, I knew. She's the first one I told when I was 16 and she didn't write me off. That's your choice, sweetheart, if that's how you want to live, and I'm behind you 100%. Jassy76 says, not the arsehole, you are my new hero. Do you need a cape? I can make you one. A Malachite Macchiato says, I'm going not the arsehole, but because people like Caroline need to stop pushing her view of what makes you real person and her view of life is supposed to look like. Maybe she will learn to keep her opinions on other people's bodies, lives and decisions to herself. I bet her nose hurts from getting whomped for being so far in everyone else's business. And we'll have one more from Final Blade Style who says, not the arsehole. She was being a nosy busybody and not minding her own business. Now if this is the first time doing it, you went too far, but based on what you said, this isn't the first time doing it, thus she deserved it. Hopefully she learned from this and stops being so nosy, but I doubt it. The younger ones have seen the aunt do this to others and to them as well, and they probably never got any support from the elders to get her to stop. Quite frankly, you have my thanks for doing this because others have done similar to me. Only difference is when I'm going to get married and have kids since I'm male. Ignore what the older people are saying, you are awesome for doing this. Now, what do you guys make of this story and today's collection of stories? How would you react? What are your verdicts if you choose to share them? Never any pressure to share your opinions. If you're just here for a story or two, that's absolutely fine, and I applaud you for doing it. Thank you so much for your love, support, and time towards the channel. If you would like to support the channel further, as some people ask, you absolutely can by clicking that join button down below for YouTube, or clicking the link tree in the description and clicking Patreon in there and joining up there. It massively helps out our channel going forward, and I can never express that enough. Thank you so much for doing you, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.
I've been thinking about your smile. I've been thinking that I can't let you go. Hey, can you hear